Okay, so this is going to be part two of the Dennis Zoglman divorce saga. I made a part one video already. So this is going to be part two. And where we left off was Dennis Zoglman had passed out drunk on the dining room floor. And somehow his false teeth ended up on the floor, I guess, and the house dog played with them while he was passed out and broke the corners off, and they wouldn't stay in anymore. It's This sounds like some stuff I'm making up. I wish it was a silly made-up story, but it's actually true. I was 14 or 15 at the time. My mom and dad had been married for about 15 years. And the old man, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, threw a bitch fit, whining and crying about how he was a victim of the dog. And we got to get rid of the house dog, the Cocker Spaniel house dog. So, anyways, me and Mom said, no, we ain't going to get rid of the dog. You know, that's a stupid idea. These people getting rid of dogs. What is that? Anyways, he wouldn't let it go. He wouldn't shut up about it. And one weekend, with a couple of his drinking buddies, he decided to drink around and goof around and take the dog to the brother-in-law's house and put the dog in a pen. When my mom came home, she found out this was the case, and she told him to go get the dog. He refused, and she said, well, okay, I'm going to get a lawyer, get paperwork, and we're going to get a divorce. And I'll get Shane, I'll get this house, you get your land and whatever belongings you take with you from here, and that'll be that. So this is continuing that saga. All right. Well, I'm working on a memory here. I'm working on, I remember snapshots. I'm not one of these people that remembers every minute of everything. I remember snapshots here and there. So the old man had 30 days to get out of the house. It actually was not a nasty divorce like you hear people have horrible divorces and the wife's going to steal everything and the guy hides his stuff and, crazy stuff goes on. And they battle it out in court and this thing and that thing. It was not that. As big of idiots as these two clowns were, Dennis and Brenda Zoglman, it ended up not being that kind of divorce. It was going to be nasty, but generally the nastiness was at me. Okay, there's a lot to talk about here. I have to sort through it and figure out what order to put this in and try to remember what details I want to say. So he had 30 days to leave. I've got the divorce papers, and I'm going to try to take pictures or video and put them on the screen so you can read them and see what it said. Dennis Zoglman had barely been sick a day in his life. I've only known of him to be sick twice in his life. He was sick when he was a kid for a short time with the fever, and later when I was 15, 16, he caught the flu. And outside of that, I don't think he's ever been sick a day in his life. So, he's had... My point is he's plenty able-bodied to work and all of that, even though he's a blackout drunk alcoholic since he was a teenager. I mean, there are functional alcoholics. Now he was functional as keeping a job, and waking up Monday morning and going and working and all that, even though he got, might got blind drunk that night before, and off and on and through the evenings and who knows. But he was dysfunctional as a caring, feeling, ethical human being. He was completely dysfunctional at me, directed at me. I was the one who caught the hate and the bullshit from this clown. So he had 30 days to get out, and if I can find pictures of some of this stuff in the house, so he basically could pick anything he wanted to take, and he took pretty much everything of monetary value. He took this china cabinet, which they had salvaged and refinished. It was from his side of the family, but it was part of our family. I hate to use that word because what a family, Well, anyways, he took that, and I think he sold that to his sister for about $1,400. He also owned a commercial meat saw that was used to cut up deer meat, and he sold that to Jerry, the brother-in-law, for $1,000. There was an old antique trunk, like a treasure trunk type of thing, storage trunk. He sold that to his sister, I think. I don't know what he got for that. $300, $400, $500. I don't even know. What else? He got his pickup truck. They only had 2 cars. He had his pickup and Mom had her car. And that pretty much took the dollar value out of this place. They didn't have a lot of stuff. It wasn't like they had tons of money to sort out or valuables. It just wasn't that kind of deal. So any big items, like $1,400 for a piece of furniture, that was about the highest priced thing in the whole house. So he took, he got out of here with a few grand worth of stuff. Whatever money was his out of the bank accounts, I guess they had separate bank accounts. I don't remember that being an issue. I don't know if there were any credit cards. I think he was supposed to pay off credit cards, whatever it was, and I don't know what the amounts were. It might say in the divorce papers here. And so that was it. Not a big complicated deal. And he had a month to leave. It also said in the divorce papers, which he didn't dispute, there was no dispute over anything. She had it drawn up the way she told the lawyer to draw it up, and he signed it. They didn't argue. They didn't fight about it. They just, that was it. One of the things in the divorce thing was he was supposed to pay $50 a week child support. $50 a week. Now, there's going to be some guys out there who are going to be like, you're kidding me, right? $50 a week. Now, this was in the late 80s. But still, even if you factor in inflation, getting a divorce and you, the guy, have to pay child support, $50 a week is basically nothing. Let's see, what is 50 divided by 7? So that's $7.14 a day, right? $7.14 a day is what he was to pay in child support until I was, what was it, 18 or is it 21? I can't even remember. Again, it'll say it in divorce papers here. So, yeah, he wasn't being punished. $50 a week. So he had to go find a place to live, and he went to. I'll show on where it used to be. It's been tore down now. It was a tiny little old house with a piece of a cellar under it, a little single-story farmhand house is what it had been, I think, years ago. I think a man and his wife and their daughter lived there, and he was the farmhand for that farm. So this was on a farm. A farmer owned it, and the old man found out about it or knew about it, and the guy rented it to him. I don't know what he paid for rent, but I doubt it was much. So, and it was right down the road from his land. So, and it was only a couple miles from the house he was leaving. So he starts renting that house, and I remember they were going to go look at it one evening. Him and his mom Bernie, and they were here at the house. Mom was gone, and they were going to go look at it. And they were like, "Why don't you come with us?" And I didn't feel like going. I mean, it's getting dark, and what I need to go look at it for. I mean, I'm not going to make a decision. And I said, "Nah, it's all right." And they both insisted that I go. Now, I'm going to get into some more things, but what was going on with the Bernie Dennis Zoglman crew, clan, whatever, is they were trying to lure me and bring me over to their side. Their main concern was to get out of paying the child support. I found out as time went on. The $50 a week. He also was supposed to pay if I went to any college stuff. If I decided to go to school, he was supposed to pay for it. Now I guess that would mean a trade school or a college or something. I don't know. And that was about it. And I think he was supposed to pay medical insurance. He's supposed to pay the insurance on me. I don't know what that would have amounted to back then. Now this was a guy who, when I was a kid, he would he would open his billfold, which was kind of packed full of $100 bills, and he'd be like, "Look at all the money I got." And I remember he'd sit at the table and lay all the money out and count it carefully. He was making good money working in a coal mine in the 1980s. Now, the thing about that, back then, compared to what factories paid, coal mines paid really good. That might not be the case since then. Factories might be paying as good or better than coal mines, sort of, kind of. But at that time, if you were a factory worker and you somehow could get a job in a coal mine, you could get a pretty big bump in pay. And he worked for a union coal mine for 7 years, so they paid union stuff. So these people were never wealthy, but they blew a lot of money on their shitty habits and his drinking. My mom didn't drink when I was a kid. But, they had their shit habits, and he wasted every spare minute of his life. When he wasn't at work, he was sitting in a bar, or he was bumping around with his buddies at somebody's house, somebody's garage, riding around a pickup truck, hanging out somewhere. So it wasn't like, some people might work 2 or 3 jobs or something, or have a side job. No, not him. His side job was getting drunk. Yeah. So he squandered time, money, opportunities. I don't know. He got picked up for drunk driving in his life 5 or 6 times. Although in the early days, it wasn't a hardcore thing like it became later on. You know, in the early days, if you got picked up for drunk driving, they might take you to jail. They might not. They'd take your beer, and the cops would drink your beer and stuff like that. You know, and probably tell you to get on home. That kind of thing. Later on, it became more serious where they get you in a bunch of legal shit that cost money and all that. So, and he did owe money on his land. He had gotten a bank loan. But I mean, these people, if they had not wasted their money and their time and energy on bullshit and drama and bad habits, I mean, they could have done so much. They could have done so much for themselves. They could have done a lot for me. Their one and only kid. So, anyways, so I went along with them, and we go over this house. The power wasn't on. It was dark in there. We're looking at it with a flashlight. It had a little kitchen, uh, a little living room, and a little bedroom, a little bathroom, and then it had kind of a side closet that you could put a washer and dryer in there, and that was about it. And then it had this rather unpleasant little cellar under it with a shower. Um, yeah, and to get to that, you had to walk outside. You had to go outside. Like if you wanted to take a shower there, you had to walk outside, then go into the cellar, take your shower, and then walk back outside and back into the house to take a shower. It did have a bathtub, but it didn't have a shower there. Anyways, it was just a tiny little, you know, it wasn't wonderful. Wasp came crawling out here and there and stuff like it. I don't know how long it had sat empty since it had been lived in. I don't know. But anyways, and it had a little drive-in garage that you really couldn't fit too much of anything in there. A little old garage, a little wooden garage. So he had 30 days to move out. Okay. He did not want the divorce. Mom, Brenda, was the one getting the divorce. He did not want the divorce. He didn't want to live like a married guy, but he didn't want the divorce. I guess he thought, well, this would cost money. It'll be a hassle. I'd rather just stay married. But he didn't want to straighten up and behave himself either and act like a decent husband and dad. He didn't want to do that either. So he wanted to be a drunken dipshit and still have a home base, I guess. So he had zero interest in really in being a dad to me. That was, he didn't care about that. What he did do as I got a little older, like when I got to be 12, 13, so on, he kind of started to induct me into his drinking buddy Hall of Fame. So if I could become a drinking buddy, well, now that could be something. But he still had this hateful bent toward me. He had this resentful, hateful bent against me. I guess I just ruined his life or something, so he had to just become an alcoholic instead. But anyways, this is something that happened. So the 30 days was winding down. And me and him were here at the house by ourselves. Brenda was gone. And I kind of remember it was sort of towards the evening. And he was sort of hanging around the house. He was drinking his beer. And he was weirdly laying on the bed. It's kind of, he was lounging around a little bit. Maybe he took a shower or something. I don't know. But I remember he was laying on the bed. And he says to me, and again, I'm like 14 to 15 years old. And he says, "Hey, old buddy, I want to talk to you a little bit. Come on in here. So I'm in his bedroom. He's laying there, and he's got a plan. He's a crafty son of a bitch. So he says, "Hey, old buddy, I was wanting to know if you could do something for me." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, your mom, she's all riled up about this, wanting to get this divorce. You know, she's all mad about everything. But you don't want us to get divorced, do you?" Now I realized, looking back on it, he was watching me, waiting to see if I would, get upset and do like kids do. Oh, please don't get divorced. A lot of kids do. A lot of kids, when mom and dad gets divorced, it's terrifying and heartbreaking and all of that. That was not the case with me. I was 14 or 15. I'd been through the ringer with these people, screaming, hollering, breaking shit, flipping tables, the whole dramatic bunch of shit. These people had traumatized the shit out of me throughout my childhood with their stupid antics. And I was the opposite. I felt like a weight had been lifted off of me. I felt physically, mentally, emotionally like a weight had been lifted. The thought of them getting divorced. I remember walking outside in the shed, and I just felt like this, just lighter. If you're parents and you make your kid feel like that, you are a fucking criminal. If your behavior makes your kid feel like that when you're going to get a divorce, that he feels like an emotional, mental, physical burden is lifted off of him, then that means you, the parents, are fucking criminals. Fucking criminals. So Brenda and Dennis, in that sense, in that regard, are fucking criminals. And they should have done time in jail. Whatever, some kind of punishment or something. I don't know. I'm not always a big jail guy. I don't like the legal system. But anyways, he's laying on his bed, and he said, "You don't want this divorce, do you?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Well, I didn't mind it. And I don't know. And he says, "Well, why don't you do, I was wondering if you could do me a favor, old buddy. Why don't you tell your mom you don't want us to get divorced? Cry a little bit. And tell her you don't want us to get divorced, and then maybe she won't do it." So I'm standing there. That's just what a sleazy rat fuck Dennis Zoglman is. The kid that he abused and treated like shit, he's now trying to scam me and con me into whipping up fake tears to my mom to convince her not to get the divorce because he doesn't want it, because it's going to cost him a few bucks. It's going to be a hassle for him. He's not in love. He doesn't care about being in the same house with me and her. That's not the thing. It's the money and the hassle. He doesn't want the inconvenience. It'll be a financial hit. That the house itself, even though I don't think it was paid for, it is a bit of a financial asset that he had paid into. So it's financially worth it to just stay married. So this sleaze bag is trying to con me into crying to my mom and begging her not to get this divorce. And I'm standing there. I don't, you're a kid. What are you doing? How you process this nonsense? And I said something like, and he's like, "Can you do that for me, old buddy?" Yeah, I'm his old buddy. all of a sudden. Yeah, we're buddies. Ain't that something? This piece of shit. All of a sudden, we're buddies. And I said, I'm just tired of this shit. And I start to walk out. And then he's like, yeah, I'll never ask you for nothing. Everything I've done for you. He launches into that kind of shit. I don't remember the words exactly. That kind of shit. This is the kind of people. That's the, when you got a guy like that for a dad, you're like living with your enemy. A fucking piece of shit scumbag, motherfucker. A fucking guy that treats a kid like that, unbelievable. Isn't that a fucking piece of shit? Man, I've known so many pieces of shit in my life. Fucking motherfuckers. Dirty, rotten bastards. Anyways, this piece of shit. So, I didn't do what he wanted. Now, what he was doing, his mom, Bernie, and I don't know if his sister was in on this shit as well. I don't know to what extent she was in his ear. But Bernie, I don't think Scott, his younger brother, I don't know if he had anything to say about it or much. I don't know. I doubt it. But those two bitches, I think they were in his ass about, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, and tell Shane this, and do, maybe you can convince him to do. I think they were filling him up with these ideas. I don't know. So he was about 35 years old, right? Getting divorced. This guy, barely been sick a day in his life. He can work whatever job. He can get a job and work. Even though he's a hopeless alcoholic, he can still hold down a job somehow. So he can make money. But he wanted to get out of the child support thing completely. He had no intentions of paying it. Well, he had to pay rent. He sold everything of value. He took everything of value that we had here and sold it. And then he's going to his mom. This is a 35-year-old guy. Tough drinking, hard drinking, coal miner. By God, I'm tough. He's going to his mommy when he's 35. Not sick. If you have a chronic health problem or something like that and you're an older guy, you should be able to go to your family. You should, to some extent, go to your family for help. The same way they should be able to come to you for help. That's how it should be. It rarely is. But so I don't fault people in that regard. But this is a guy who had no health problems. He's good to go. He can go get a job. He had a job. Whatever. Okay. And he pissed away tens of thousands of dollars from the time he was, let's just say, 16 or 18. Now he's 35. On his shit habits that he had, he pissed away thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But now he's going to mommy begging for some money, and he has no intention of paying $50 a week child support. Okay? So she had no intentions of giving him money. I don't think she ever gave him any money. I don't think so. If she did, he kept it a secret from me, which I he would, of course. Now, I think she told him, I'll give you money if you quit drinking. I think that's what she said. I mean, I wasn't there, but that's the sense I got from what he kind of said. So he moves into the little old house over there at Jack's on the farm. And I was over there one day, and he's standing outside. And one of his drinking buddies was there. And he's standing there and he's drinking a black label beer. That's a non-alcohol beer, black label. And we kind of seen that, like, what the hell are you drinking that for? And he's like, I'm done. I'm done drinking. I quit. This is all I'm drinking from now on. And we laughed at him. And rightfully so, because we knew he was full of shit. I think he quit drinking for, I don't know if he lasted 2 days or he may have went a week. I don't know. It wasn't long. The next thing, he was getting drunk, very drunk, in the time he lived there many times. I don't know how long he lived in that house. 2 or 3 years? I can't remember. But no, he didn't throttle back on the drinking at all. So I think his mom told him, I'll give you some money if you quit drinking, but I'm not going to give you money and then you're going to spend it on beer. So I think that's why he said, I quit drinking. Yeah, and that lasted about 5 minutes. So another thing that happened, we were over at his land one day, and we were walking up the hill, just me and him. And here we go with another con job. This is a guy who hated me, who expressed hate and anger at me throughout my childhood. And we're walking up the hill, and he's going to pull another one on me. And he says, hey, and I was working at one of these damn chicken houses gathering eggs, but I didn't have a driver's license. I was, 15. I just didn't have a driver's license. So my mom or somebody, I was getting a ride somewhere or another, riding with somebody who worked there. So he says, hey, I was wanting to ask you something. Why don't you move in with me over there? Just come live with me. And he said right out, he said, and that way I don't have to pay that damn child support. If you're living with me, I don't have to pay that. He said it. He didn't want me to live with him because he wanted to be with me and love me. No. He just wanted to get out of that $50 a week. This piece of shit, scumbag. Now, if I had moved in with him, besides the shit and abuse that I'd had to put up with that fucking guy, I'd have been living in a much, much smaller house. A tiny little house. And my bedroom would have been that closet. That closet with the washer and dryer, that would have been my bedroom. It was barely big enough to put a bed in it. So I would have went from having a small room here as a bedroom to having a tiny room as a bedroom there. And then I'd been living with that shit bag and all of his shit. Oh my gosh, just so he could get out of paying $50 a week. That's the kind of sleazy fuck Dennis Zoglman is. To try to con and manipulate a child so he can get out of paying $50 so I can go live in a wasp-infested closet with a shower that's down in a nasty little cellar basement that you have to walk out of the house and walk soaking wet, back into the house in the wintertime. You had, when you got out of the shower there, you had to walk up the stairs, out the door, through the snow, and back into the house. For real. That was the shower arrangement there. Unbelievable. I had uncomfortable living conditions in this house, and they would have got way worse living there. So that he could get out of the $50 a week. That's the kind of fucking scumbag motherfucker this motherfucker is. This drunk piece of shit who poured tens of thousands of dollars of alcohol down his fucking throat. He wants to save $50 a week and wants me to live in a fucking closet to do it with his hateful drunk ass. It was bad enough that I went around him. I kept going around him as a teenager. That was bad enough. Boy, he gave me some hard ways to go. I'll get into that sometime. He was a mean motherfucker to me. He was bitter about that divorce, and he took all that fucking hate and anger that he was mad about that divorce, and he shit on me with it. He'd explode on me with anger and scream and holler at me and cuss me out in front of other people when I was a teenage kid. But the divorce, it wasn't his fault. He's a victim. This fucking scumbag who behaved like a shit stain, and my mom finally got fed up with it. But it's not his fault. It must be my fault, I guess, or something. That's another thing I want to point out. A lot of times there's this talk about, when mom and dad gets a divorce, the kids are like, oh, what'd we do? It's all my fault. I never felt that at all. Never felt that. I never felt, oh, gee, they're getting divorced because of me. No. I never felt that at all, ever. So I just want to clear that up. I never felt like, oh, I did something wrong, they're getting divorced. No. I knew the reason they're getting divorced because they're both a couple of fucking assholes who behaved like assholes. And again, this whole little, won't you come live with me so I don't have to pay that child support? I guarantee you he was going to Bernie, his mom, and maybe his sister, and they're sitting there going, well, have him move in with you, and blah, 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 and all this shit. Oh, another thing I brought up when he asked me that, we were walking up the hill, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, well, my room would be that closet. What the heck? I thought this would not be a better arrangement for me. This would be way worse. And so I said to him, I said, yeah, but I said I'm working, up there that egg farm, and I'm getting a ride up there. I said, but if I live over here, how would I get to work? I mean, nobody's, I didn't figure, well, somebody's going to go so far out of their way to come over there to pick me up to go to this piece of shit egg job, that paid $3 an hour or whatever the hell it was. Stupid shit. And he goes, well, I'll figure it out. Yeah, he'd have figured it out. Well, I should have figured it out for him. I should have just not worked there. That was stupid. That was another dumbass thing, I should have just, because these people, not so much my mom, but the old man's side, they're all this work. They're sick in the head with this shit. They act like a kid should be paying his own way when he's 13. That's just how stupid these dumb German bastards are around here. Dumb old German fucks. And they treat their kids like shit. But anyways. Okay. Now let me lay this one on you. The old man, in the 15 years of my life, up to that point, had never ever once went with me or took me anywhere like a father-son or a family thing or nothing. Ever. The only father-son thing we ever did together was I would go along with him when he would go drunk driving on weekends or evenings and hang out, or he'd take me to the tavern and I'd sit in the back room, and he thought being a good dad was getting me in the bar room where you're supposed to be 21. I'd be like 8 years old or 9 years old, and he'd get me in the bar room, and buy me a soda pop. That was like, he thought he was like super dad. When I was 11, he started taking me squirrel hunting, so we could shoot cute little innocent animals out of trees, which I was into back then. It's a natural thing, people like to hunt and get things. It's sort of in the DNA. I don't do that anymore. I'm an animal rights guy and all that. But anyways, so that was his claim to fame, to being a good dad, was he took me squirrel hunting. Wow. Tiptoeing through the woods with a gun and shooting a squirrel off a limb. Wow. Let's give this guy Dad of the Century award. I mean, this is good stuff. Forget Ward Cleaver. Dennis Zoglman will show you how to cut the guts out of a squirrel. I mean, that's real. That's Dad of the Century material there. So he never did jack shit with me ever as a father-son thing, ever. Nothing. Ever. This divorce happens, and he says, hey, let's go see a movie. In 15 years of my life, I don't think we'd ever been to a movie. I'd been to movies with my mom, but the old man would just stay home. He would just sit at home and get drunk, or be gone with his buddies, or getting drunk, or something, or be at the tavern, or whatever. All of a sudden, well, let's go to a movie together. And wouldn't you know it, he had the movie picked out. And wouldn't you know, do you know what the movie was? You know what the name of the... Now keep in mind, he's trying to get me away from my mom. He's talking shit about her to me. He's trying to lure me away from her. I know his mom's putting him up to this shit. Maybe his sister Marla as well. Just trying to manipulate me and get me away from my mom and go live with him in that closet with the wasp. So he doesn't have to pay $50 a fucking week child support, this piece of shit. And the movie he says we're going to go watch is called Throw Mama from the Train. Wow, what a coincidence, right? He's trying to get me to be away from my mom, turn me against my mom, try to get me and my mom to be better enemies, and he's saying nasty shit about her to me, bashing her, and trying to get me to move out of the house from her to go live with him. And wouldn't you know, the one time in 15 years he got, let's go to the movies. What movie? Oh, it's called Throw Mama from the Train. Now, that's not a coincidence. That was on purpose. And I bet you he was sitting at his mom's table, probably whining for money and crying how he's a victim of this divorce, and my mom's abusing him and who knows what, and why she getting a divorce. And I guarantee, I bet money that fucking nasty bitch Bernie seen that advertised in the Jasper Herald and cracked up laughing and said, you need to take Shane to that movie. Throw Mama from the Train. Yeah, Billy Crystal. Yeah. And we went. He kind of insisted. I didn't want to go see the movie. I had no desire to go see this movie. And, you know, in my kid mind at 15, I'm kind of like, yeah, throw mama from the train. Yeah. I wonder why he wants to go see that one. So we go see the movie. I think we saw it at the Astra in the corner over there by Sturm's Hardware. I don't think it's a movie theater anymore. I think that's where we went to see it. And I remember walking out, and he was like, he's kind of looking at me like, hey, that's pretty good, wasn't it? Pretty good. And I said, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a stupid movie myself. No, he said, that's pretty good. Now, the ironic thing about the going and seeing that movie and those fuckers putting him up to this and him putting me up to going, the ironic thing about it, the mom in the movie who's mean and nasty and screaming all the time at her son, that's Bernie. That's his fucking mom right there. You know, loud, obnoxious, insulting, whatever. That was basically a version of her. That's the irony of this shit. He should have watched it and went, wow, that kind of reminds me of Bernie, the way she treated him. You know, unbelievable. These fucking scumbag people. These fucking zoglman fucking scumbags. And I'm not talking about all of them out there. I'm talking about that little clan on Church Avenue. That's the old man's little clan right there. Those fuckers. Been a curse on my fucking life knowing those goddamn people. Alright. So we go see Throw Mama from the Train. I guess, yeah, that was supposed to be a subliminal message. Okay, now let me tell another story. This was before he moved out. This was when he had the 30 days. He was still living here. It was still me, him, and Brenda living here. Let me tell you this little story. So it was winding down. I don't know if he had a week to go or what it was, but anyways, he was running out the clock, I guess. I guess he thought if he hung around a while, you know, he could change it. He thought this was all going to be temporary. Like, okay, he'll move out, but they'll get back together. That's what he thought. But when he moved out, as soon as he moved out, he started living like a guy who had no intentions of getting back together again with the drinking and the running around bullshit. So we're sitting here in the dining room where he passed out and the dog got his teeth. We're sitting at the table, me and him. My mom's across the hall in the living room watching TV. She's sitting in a chair watching TV. Without going into details, I'll just say there was a handgun in the house. A revolver. And he asked me if it was loaded. And I said no. And he takes it. I stay sitting at the dining room table, but I can see across the hall into there, and I can just see or hear from where I'm sitting. He walks over and he sits on the arm of the couch. And my mom's sitting there in a chair watching TV, and he's holding the revolver in his hand. And he starts to tell her something along the lines of something like, yeah, we're getting divorced or whatever, but I'll tell you what, if I ever find out the reason you're divorcing me is because you're screwing around on me, you know, and he's like showing the gun to her, like he's holding it. I don't know the words they exactly used, but basically he was letting her know if the reason she's divorcing him is because she's screwing around on him, uh, she could get shot. And then he walked. That went on for a minute or two, and then he walked back to the dining room, kind of grinning, like ha ha. Yeah, this boy ain't smart. I mean, this boy is not a smart boy, right? Dennis Zoglman. This is not a smart guy. You know, if she'd have called the cops and said, "Hey, my soon-to-be ex-husband just sat here with a gun and threatened me," I mean, he'd have been fucked, right? This kid is not smart. He's gotten away with everything in his whole life. He's never been held accountable for anything, ever. His whole fucking life. There's never been consequences. The first consequences he ever had in his whole life for anything was when he was about 35 years old and my mom divorced him. That was the consequence. And then all he could do was try to wiggle, be a weaselly little scumbag, and try to wiggle his way out of those consequences. And completely ignore his behavior as being the cause of the consequences, and then act like, well, she must be divorcing me for some other reason, and then take out his anger on me about the divorce and you and this and that. That went on for years with this fucking guy. He's a little boy. He's a little baby who never grew up. He acts like he's a tough guy, but he's not. He's a shitbag. He's one of these. All of these tough guys, they're all full of shit. All these fucking crybabies. They're all these cops that act like they're macho tough guys. Yeah, they'll beat the fuck out of a little old lady or a kid or something, or kick the shit out of you when there's 5 or 6 of them. Yeah, they'll shoot you. All these tough guys are full of shit phonies, and then when it comes to consequences, they want to cry and boo-hoo and no, not me. They don't want the consequences for their actions, so they're not tough guys. They're not tough. They're not real men. They're scumbags. They're whiny little pieces of shit who get on a power trip and get away with shit and they expect to keep getting away with shit. And then when they don't get away with it, they want to get mean and nasty and kick back against people weaker than them, smaller than them, at a disadvantage to them. That's how these fucking scumbags are in this world. All these macho fucks. They act like they're badasses. Yeah, they're bad to be around. They're bad to know. They're bad to interact with. They're bad to do business with. They're bad in every way. You gotta stay the fuck away from them. But they're not real men that do real men things, like take responsibility for their actions or change their actions and get better. They're not that kind of people. They're fucking scumbags. That whole macho thing is a front. So the old man was going to Bernie and asking her for money, and I guess she wouldn't give him any. And he said to me sometime later, she was, before Jimmy Swaggart, the TV preacher, before he got caught with his sex scandal thing, Bernie was a big fan, and she would send him money. I don't know how much, but she was going on about how much she liked Jimmy Swaggart. And so then later, when the old man tried to get money out of her, but she wouldn't give him any, he said to me, he said, yeah, she gave that fucking Jimmy Swaggart money, but she wouldn't give me any money. These people, anything to cause me embarrassment, I tell you. In the divorce papers, it says something about a tank, right? Maybe you can see it on the screen there. And when I seen that years later, I said to my mom, I said, "Why'd you put that in there?" She said, "Well, because it was worth about $700, and if I hadn't put it in there, he would have took it and sold it." So what that's from? So he had cattle. We had cattle when I was growing up, and he had cattle beyond that for a time. But he mismanaged that just like he mismanaged everything else in his fucking life. So anyways, so we had cattle, but he never wanted a bull. There was a couple guys around here that did this artificial breeding shit on cattle, right? You know, more animal abuse. Well, at that time, so he wanted cows and to have calves, but he didn't want to have a bull for some reason or something. I don't know. Maybe he thought he'd be hard on the fences and get out of the fence. So he would get these guys to do this artificial breeding. Well, you had to try to catch the cow at the right time. You had to get these guys on the phone. Sometimes they're out of town or they're at the tavern drunk or something. So it was a pain in the ass. So at some point, my mom said, "Well, I'll go to school and learn to do this. You know, you take a class for a few days or whatever." So he's like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So they buy this tank. This stuff is like, it grosses me out, but so I don't like to talk about it. But it's a tank with dry ice, an insulated tank, and they put the stuff in there. So you buy this shit, and then when the cow is ready, I used to operate the chute. The old man built he put a rope on a board, and you put feed in the trough, and then in the bunk, and then the cow puts her head in, and it was my job to pull the rope, and then she's basically caught, but they keep eating the corn, and then they get sexually violated by somebody. In this case, it was my mom. And that was always a drama fest. These people couldn't do anything, especially my mom. She would get dramatic as hell about it. So she put that in there. She didn't want him to take that tank, and she sold it later, and got some money. I think she thought maybe she would keep doing that for people, and it'd be like a little side business to make money. But at some point, it's a pain in the ass dealing with people. So she sold the tank. My mom, if she'd not had her head up her ass, she should have held him to this thing. By the way, let me say, when she went to the lawyer and said, "Here's what I want, $50 a week," he said, "Oh, well, you can get a lot more than $50 a week." And she said, "No, I just want $50 a week." And he's like, "You can get a lot more." Now, I don't know how much more would have been, but the lawyer said, "Yeah, you can get a lot more than $50 a week child support out of this guy." And she's like, "No, that's well, that kind of screws me a little bit in a big, overall, because he didn't spend $50 on me at all anyway. He wouldn't have spent $50 on me at all unless he was forced to do so." Okay, it didn't take long for him to, I guess when he couldn't lure me over there to live in that closet with the wasp and Throw Mama from the Train movie didn't lure me over there, and him saying shitty things about Brenda to me didn't make me run away from her to him. I guess when that all failed, then he just resorted to being a bitchy dick. And he would show up to the house. He'd like barge in the back door. And he'd be like, "I ain't paying that child support. I don't have to pay it." And he said, because Shane's working full time, I don't have to pay that child support legally. Now that is not true. I would guess it was Bernie or Marla put him up to this shit. Like they pulled this out of their asses. Because in their minds that would just be true. You know, in Bernie's mind that would make sense. It's not legal, but in her child abusing mind, well, that would make perfectly good sense. Why would a dad spend money on his child's living expenses when the kid's working full time? Come on. So he just barged in the house one day. He's like, I ain't paying that child support anymore. I don't have to. He's working full time, and by law, I don't have to pay that. He also said to me with the insurance, he said, don't they have insurance where you work? Can't they get you insurance? Well, I was working for farmers for $4 or $5 an hour. They're not going to pay your insurance. Farmers don't pay benefits. Okay? They don't pay benefits to kids, at least. That's why they hire kids, so they don't have to pay anything. They don't want to pay anything. Just like Dennis Zoglman didn't want to pay anything. You know, they want everything done for free. So I think he quit paying the insurance at that point. My mom failed miserably in that whole divorce process. Now, I don't know how much of it was she was scared of him or afraid he was going to do something or just didn't want to deal with his bitching, you know, showing up drunk and throwing a fit. I don't know. I would guess she must have been scared to push it. So she just let it go. And he quit paying. And that was it. He didn't pay the child support. He signed the paper agreeing to it. I think he had no intentions of paying it when he signed it and just thought, well, I'll wiggle out of it somehow. I'll just get Shane to live with me in that closet and then I'll be out of it. You know, but his plan didn't work. And he expressed a lot of anger and hate toward me. And I, you know, being a kid, you don't look out for yourself. It's a natural thing to want to go be around your piece of shit dad, right? But it sure gave him an opportunity. It gave him access to me to be a hateful scumbag. I'll probably try to get into some of that. Yeah, I probably won't do it in this little piece. I have a crazy story. Before he moved out, in that month he was supposed to move out, I don't know if I want to tell this story. I've written it, and I like it better written rather than telling it. I like to write it. Maybe I could put it below the video. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll see if I want to do that. I've wrote it out. I think it reads better than if I try to tell it. But it was something that happened in that 30 days where my mom decided she wanted to be dramatic and pretend like something was bad was going to happen, and then this stupid shit happened. Yeah, I think I'll write it. I'll write it below. If it ain't there, it's because I just decided not to put it there. But I'll see about it. If not, it'll be somewhere. Maybe I'll make a separate video, write it out. Maybe I'll even read it. Maybe I'll write it out and then read it in video form if I can. I don't talk very well, so it might not be a good idea. It was just some crazy shitting thing that happened here in the house because of these two fucking clowns that I had to live with. Oh my God. As I pointed out before, when I was 13, I had my first horrific migraine attack. And so through my teenage years, I would have those from time to time here and there, but they were devastating. the worst kind of migraine attack you can possibly have. I was getting no medical care, nothing. I would have been better if I'd been raised by a bunch of coons. Like a bunch of raccoons just running up and down the creek. I'd have been better off with a herd of raccoons as my family than these piece of shit motherfuckers. Unbelievable.